Welcome to another update of our time in the United States, and recently we visited a bunch of ruins, including Aztec Ruins National Monument, and it's right on the north side of city Aztec, New Mexico. And as you can see, they are ancient ruins about 1,000 to 1,200, 300 years old, according to tree ring dating of the logs excavated here at this site. And here's a rebuilt the Great Kiva at this settlement here. And a kiva is a circular building. They have a lot of these kivas in all of these ancient settlements, these ancient pueblo, ancestral pueblo sites, but a lot of them are open, and so you can't really see what they thought to look like inside. But if you go through that Great Kiva here at this site, you can see what they thought it looked like inside. They basically had these timber roofs that they built, and you can see in a lot of the pueblo buildings today in modern Southwest architecture, they use the same building techniques as far as using timber for the roofs. And the timber wasn't actually, most of it wasn't sourced locally. It was actually sourced from anywhere from 40 to 70 miles away, which will be addressed more thoroughly later on in this clip. Stay tuned for that. One of the features you'll notice in these rooms of the site here is the doors are very short, so it's a lot of speculation of why that would be. I mean, obvious answer is that the people who inhabited, if they were people in fact, were of shorter stature. But not all the doors are that small. Some of them are real small, some of them are like medium sized, but none of them are like made for a 6-foot person, for example. Maybe a 5-foot person or a 4-foot person, or humanoid of some type. But yeah, interesting to come and see this kind of site. It's 1,000+ years old. But they even believe a lot of these ancestral pueblo sites in the Southwest were built on older sites, even several thousand years ago. But I haven't looked too much into that evidence yet. But definitely interesting to see. Anything that old is, even 100, 200 years old is fascinating. That something that could last the test of time. Speaking of lasting, the next place we visited, as highlighted in this next clip, requires some good vehicle suspension and tires. As you can see it, the road, at least for the last 16 or so miles, to access this site, which is about 2 hours or so southeast of Farmington and 2 hours or so northwest of Albuquerque, it is very bumpy to get there. But it is definitely worth the trek for this little segment of the trip. A lot of people say that they're worried that their vehicle wasn't going to make it. They're on an older car or something, but it's definitely worth it. The place we are visiting, as you can see in this sign, is Chaco Culture Park, historical park. It's actually a World Heritage Site. And as you enter the canyon, Chaco Canyon, the road gets better, and one of the first sites you'll notice is this huge butte, as shown in the clip, and it's a very famous and sacred site called Fajada Butte, worshipped by many tribes who consider the Chaco people their ancestors, modern day tribes including the Zuni and the Hopi, for example.
We're here at a trail on the way to the Una Vida Great House at Chaco Canyon. So it's the first stop near the visitor center. About a mile round trip here on the trail. Back in the distance you can see Fajada Butte. It's a sacred site here near Chaco Canyon. And let's head down the trail a bit, eh?
So right behind the visitor center, by the way, you have to pay an entrance fee. I think it was $20, maybe $25 for the whole vehicle. We had 4 of us in the car, but if you're paying individually, like if you show up on a motorcycle or a bicycle or even by foot, something like $10 or maybe $15 per person. I'm not sure exactly. But once you pay, right behind the visitor center, there's the first site that you can visit, and it's actually a trail of about a half a mile or so, about a kilometer, round trip, I believe, that you can walk up to the first set of ruins, and this is called Una Vida. It's a great house. So a lot of these sites, they have these great houses, and great houses were basically the center of the community, like I guess a version of an ancient ancestral Puebloan castle. per se. But this first site is mostly unexcavated, so it is actually the ruins, and you could see like the masonry work. It's kind of all in disarray, and so it's very unique in that sense, where you can kind of see that it's basically untouched since it's been discovered. And so it's a beautiful site, a little bit elevated here off the canyon floor, and you can actually see here in the distance, the horizon, the Fajada Butte Mesa mountain that is sacred here. And a short hike up the cliff from Una Vida is this cliff face with some petroglyphs that you can see here. Very interesting for anybody who's out looking for petroglyphs. This is one site you can see several of them, as well as a breathtaking view from up top the canyon. And it's not too steep. I was able to go up with my teen and toddler. I mean, I had to exercise some caution at a few switchback turns there, carry my son where it was necessary. But yeah, it's good exercise to start off your trip, because most of the other sites there are pretty close proximity to the parking lots that is near each site once you go into the canyon further. But the first one is, it's like I said, about a half a mile, kilometer or so round trip, or a little bit more maybe. But yeah, it's good to start off your trip there while you still got energy, and to catch all the views of the canyon, at least the mouth of the canyon when you come in. And like I said, the first set of ruins, Una Vida. So I mentioned that this site was a central site for the ancient ancestral pueblos, but it's also, in the modern day, a lot of the descendants of these people, such as the Hopi and the Zuni and several others, they hold this site as very sacred in Chaco Canyon. All these sites in Chaco Canyon is sacred. As far as the stone and masonry work is concerned, and it's very fascinating the way they use mud mortar mostly to keep these sandstone bricks, these stones, in place, and so intricately laid down perfectly. As you can see, I mean, it's, you have to, kind of look at it. You can see some of it's been restored, but the impressive thing is they didn't use like modern concrete to restore it, which I've seen in many sites in Southeast Asia, but they try to emulate the original mortar when they restored it. And it's the fact that these stones are so finely cut and carved from the mountain to fit perfectly together with just nothing more than mud mortar, it seems, on a lot of these sites, is very fascinating. That that it could stand the test of time of 1,000+ years. And then up the road, it's a nice paved one-way road, a loop road around the whole canyon. The first site is this place called Hangopavi, and it's a great house there that's easily accessible from the parking lot. And the visitor center, there's a free brochure about this general information about these sites, but they don't get into depth of the details and the studies and history behind each site unless you buy one of their trail guides for only $2 per. But they don't have like one that covers the whole thing. You have to buy separate ones for each great house and each site within Chaco Canyon. So I only ended up buying the guidebook for the main one, which we'll go to right after this site at Hangopavi. But Hangopavi, it's nice enough that you can see how a lot of these walls were constructed, and some of these crevices, which are windows, some of them are just the places where they supported these timber logs that served as floors and roofs, as you can see here, the original timbers. And I think the key point to make here is the way that the archaeologists claim they know how old this site is, 1,000 to 1,200, 300 years, is from tree ring dating that they used on the logs that they found at the sites here. So there's a one-way loop road that takes you around the entire canyon that you could stop off at parking lots in each of these different great houses and sites along the canyon, the north and south side. It loops from the north side, and then you go back to the visitor center on the south side. But yeah, there's also some of these sites that are on top of the canyon, but I didn't get a chance to visit those. But here we're coming into the parking lot of the most famous and largest of the sites here at Chaco Canyon, which is Pueblo Bonito. So I'm not going to pretend to be some kind of archaeologist expert about this site, but it's definitely a fascinating site, and I did buy the guidebook to kind of understand, specifically for this site, Pueblo Bonito, because it's the largest of all the sites here at Chaco Canyon and in the best shape. But yeah, going around it here, you can see this rock falling rock area nearby is what they call threatening rock, and apparently in 1940 or somewhere there about, the huge rock that was overlooking this site collapsed and fallen down after 1,000 years of not falling down. And the rest of the ruins here are restored and intact, and it's very nice to see all the original rooms here built in different phases. You also have these great plazas in between where you could kind of imagine them full of people a millennia ago. Other than the rooms here, you have a lot of these kivas, these ceremonial circles that you could imagine there would have been a roof and many multi-stories in the past. But they conducted various stories, and there's some interesting excavations too of what some of the stuff they found in these things, including, human burial sites, turquoise jewelry, water and food and ceremonial vessels, etc. So according to the guidebook on this particular site, Chaco and kivas are enclosed within square rooms and contain a subfloor vault, a subfloor ventilation system, a fire pit, a low masonry bench encircling the base of the room, and pilasters, which are masonry boxes built on the benches to support the roof. So they were believed to place logs from one pilaster to the next and continue the process, creating a cribbed roof, which would have then been leveled on the top with juniper bark, rock, and dirt. And then there would have been a central hatchway in the center of the roof to vent smoke and enable the people to enter and exit the kiva.
ครับผมเข้าได้ไงเนี่ยฮะน้องเข้าได้เนี่ยเด็กรู้จะเข้าได้ไงเนี่ยห้องนี้สวยถ่ายรูปในนี้ไหม
Yeah, as an aspiring builder at heart, I think we're all have a little bit of building and creativity in us, especially when you visit these sites, you kind of just wonder about the time that they built these. And I've been to several ancient sites in Southeast Asia and Thailand particularly, and even parts of this building reminded me a lot of some of those sites. But even those sites in Thailand that I'm talking to are allegedly only 300, 400, 500 years old, whereas this site is double that at least. But just to see how they put, like I mentioned, these stone bricks that they carve so intricately together, and with apparently just mud mortar. I mean, I'm sure there's some other kind of additives there to make it harden better, and also the climate, the dry arid climate really helps it preserve it over time, as opposed to the tropics where everything is very humid and the jungle can overtake any site within 1 year, never mind 10 or 100 years. But yeah, they're very interesting how they built this, and it inspires me to research, explore, and experiment with some of these ancient building techniques.
So according to our little guide here, it says that the east and west wings of Pueblo Bonito were constructed between Common Era 1075 and 1115, including this room. This was the most expensive building phase in the canyon and one of the last. During the 1920s, astronomer A.E. Douglas pioneered dendrochronology, tree ring dating. For the first time, archaeologists could date the timbers used in construction, sometimes pinpointing the exact year or season. Archaeologists used wood samples to determine when a tree was cut down, how old it was, and in some cases, where it came from and what the logical weather was like during the tree's life. So that's how they got the age of this area, based on the floors and the roofs, which were timbers carried over from up to 80 miles away, west and north of here, in the modern day border areas of New Mexico and Colorado, New Mexico and Arizona, as well as to the east of here, north of Santa Fe, where they could have carried some of these timbers. But yeah, you can see where they would go, and this would have been easily 3 to 4 stories here high. But they said the these mesas, these pueblos here got as high as 5, possibly even 6 stories in their heyday. So, điน้องจะไปได้เดี๋ยวจะไปเข้าไปเลยสบายก็ได้เดี๋ยวเอ้ยระวังนะokay.
So they don't believe that some of these larger rooms in the east part of Pueblo Bonito were used for dwellings because there was no fire pits and they would have been not as well ventilated, and so they believed they were used mostly for storage. But you'll notice in some of the doorways you have these T-shaped doors, which are also found as far south as Mexico, and so they differ on what exactly they were symbolizing, but they believed they were for the entrance of a very special sacred room or a very important person where they kept their sacred belongings.
This is just a reconstruction of how the ceilings in the room would have looked originally, obviously without any light here. But yeah, the timbers, they said, according to the guidebook, that over 225,000 trees were cut down in Chaco Canyon adjoining here to maintain the great houses in the Chaco Canyon area. And as well as they had to drag and carry trees from as far as 60 miles away, like lodgepole and obviously probably ponderosa or spruce trees in order to have the materials to build these types of roofs and maintain their buildings here, their pueblos anyway. So this room was reconstructed, but obviously a sacred room or something, judging by the T-shaped door here coming into this area. So these adjoining crevices, I guess they're windows into the next room or some kind of like, or you can communicate with the next room without actually, I mean, I'm sure these people could crawl through them and I could crawl through if I wanted to, but it doesn't seem like it's the most practical doorway here. But neither necessarily does this much, unless these people were really small, but in relative size of humans anyway. So this doorway, or this window, crevice, gateway on the facing the southeast, it's basically where when the sun rises during the winter solstice. Over there, it is perfectly aligned to allow light to shine through there onto the next room over, and there's 6 of them at Pueblo Bonito according to the guidebook. Interesting feature there.
So, and also nearby Pueblo Bonito is a petroglyph trail that goes alongside the cliff that it access another great house called Chetroketl, and you can see a lot of petroglyphs along the road. But yeah, to wrap this up, we didn't visit every single great house in sight there at Chaco National Historical Park, but you can definitely do so if in a full day if you really want to. But basically your pass is 7 days, so it actually makes more sense probably during the spring or summer when it's warmer to go camping there and just kind of spend several days there to check out all the sites and buy all the guidebooks to really get the full insight and scoop on what you're looking at. But definitely a worthwhile place. We saw people from all over the country, you know, based on their license plates there visiting, and I would recommend it to anybody who is fascinated with history and building and culture in general. And so yeah, that wraps this update, and along the path here to close out the video you'll see some wild mustangs. So yes, there's apparently a large population of wild mustangs still in the southwest United States roaming free. And well folks, that brings us to the end of this update, but we do have some more coming soon. Thanks for tuning in. Catch up again soon. Bye.